The elevator climbed slowly toward the 20th floor, and with each number that lit up, Emma's heart beat a little faster. It was her first day at Valence Industries, one of the most prestigious corporations in New York City. She'd landed the administrative assistant job after months of searching, and while the salary wasn't extraordinary, it was an opportunity she couldn't pass up. Emma adjusted her navy blue blazer and checked her reflection in the metal doors of the elevator. Her brown hair was pulled back in a perfect bun, and her green eyes shone with a mix of nerves and determination. Despite being 30, she had a youthful look that often caused people to underestimate her intelligence and ability. When the doors opened, they revealed a world of glass and steel. The reception area was breathtaking, with white marble floors and a panoramic view of the city skyline. Behind the desk, an elegant woman greeted her with a professional smile. "Good morning, you must be Emma Miller." "Miller, I'm Patricia, the Human Resources Coordinator. Mr. Nicholas Valence is expecting you." Emma nodded, feeling her stomach knot with nerves. She'd researched her new boss before the interview. Nicholas Valence was known as a successful but extremely private man. At 40, he'd turned his family's company into an empire, yet few people knew anything about his personal life. She followed Patricia down a long hallway to a corner office. Patricia knocked and waited. "Come in," a deep voice said from inside. As the door opened, Emma saw the man who would be her boss for the first time. Nicholas Valence stood by a window, gazing out at the city. He was tall, with an athletic build and black hair just beginning to gray at the temples. When he turned to face her, Emma noticed his intense blue eyes and an expression that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "Ms. Miller," he said, extending a hand. "Welcome to the company." His handshake was firm and professional. Emma noted the small lines around his eyes, marks that spoke of sleepless nights and constant worry. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Valence. I'm very excited to be part of the team." Nicholas nodded and motioned for her to sit in a chair across from his desk. The office was elegant yet surprisingly personal. There were photos in silver frames, though from her angle, Emma couldn't make out who was in them. "Patricia will go over your responsibilities in detail," Nicholas began, glancing at a folder. "But I want you to know that I value discretion and efficiency above all. This job can be demanding, but it's also very rewarding." Over the next few minutes, he explained the office's dynamic, hours, and expectations. Emma listened intently, but something about Nicholas's voice bothered her. It was a strange feeling, as if she'd heard that voice before, in a completely different context. When the meeting ended, Patricia showed her to her desk in an open area from which she could partially see the CEO's office. The day passed quickly as Emma familiarized herself with the systems, met her colleagues, and began to understand the company culture. During lunch, Marie, a middle-aged woman from accounting, came over. "How's it going with the boss?" she asked curiously. "Nicholas Valence is a good man, but he is very private. In the 5 years I've been here, I don't think I've seen him smile more than 3 times. Emma thought about the comment as she returned to her desk. Throughout the afternoon, she had several brief interactions with Nicholas. He was polite but distant, professional but cold. However, when he thought no one was looking, Emma noticed a profound sadness in his eyes. At the end of the day, while she was organizing some documents, she heard the phone in Nicholas's office ring. It was almost 7 p.m., and most employees had already left. The door to his office was ajar, and although Emma didn't mean to eavesdrop, her boss's voice reached her desk clearly. "Hi, Mom," she heard Nicholas say, and his voice had completely changed. It no longer sounded like the cold, calculating CEO she'd met that morning. It sounded vulnerable, almost childlike. Emma froze, feeling like she shouldn't be listening but unable to move. There was something about that voice that deeply disturbed her. "Yeah, Mom, I know you're worried about me. I promise I'm eating right. How are you feeling today? Did the therapy hurt much?" Emma's heart raced. That voice, that tone of concern and unconditional love, was terribly familiar. She closed her eyes and tried to remember where she'd heard it before. "Don't worry about the money, Mom. You know I'll take care of everything. All that matters is that you get better." And then, like a lightning bolt in the darkness, Emma remembered. Her body began to tremble as memories flooded her. That voice, with that exact tone of love and desperation, had been a part of her nights for many years. When Emma was a little girl living with her mother in a small apartment, they would receive a call every night. Her mother, Carol, would always answer with a sad smile, and Emma could hear a young man's voice crying on the other end of the line. "My boy," her mom would say into the phone, "everything's going to be okay. Mom's here with you." Emma had grown up listening to those nightly conversations. Her mother never fully explained who was calling, only that he was someone very special who needed a lot of love. But Emma knew, with the intuition only children have, that this man was important to her mother in a way she didn't fully understand. The calls continued for years until one day they just stopped. Emma never knew why, and when she asked, her mom simply said that sometimes people have to go their separate ways. But that doesn't mean they stopped loving each other. Carol had worked for years as a night nurse at a private clinic, and Emma had always assumed the calls had something to do with her job. But now, listening to Nicholas Valence on the phone, she realized she had been terribly wrong. "I love you so much, Mom," she heard Nicholas say. "I'll come to visit you tomorrow. Sleep well." When the call ended, Emma sat at her desk with her heart pounding so loud she was afraid someone might hear it. The puzzle pieces were beginning to fit together in her mind, but the picture they formed was so unlikely, so extraordinary, that she couldn't fully believe it. Nicholas came out of his office a few minutes later, looking more relaxed than he had all day. Seeing Emma still at her desk, he stopped. "Still here, Ms. Miller. You don't have to stay so late." Emma looked at him, studying his face with new eyes. Now that she knew what to look for, she could see the similarities. The eyes, the shape of his nose, certain gestures. It all fit in a way that left her breathless. "Just finishing up some documents," she managed to say, hoping her voice sounded normal. Nicholas nodded and headed for the elevator. Emma watched him leave, and when she was sure he was gone, she grabbed her phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. "Mom," she said when Carol answered, "I need to ask you something really important." The conversation that followed would change Emma's life forever. After many tears and explanations, Carol confessed a truth she had kept for decades. Emma was not an only child. She had an older brother who had been given up for adoption when Carol was very young and couldn't raise two children alone. That brother had stayed in contact with Carol over the years, calling her every night to make sure she was okay. His name was Nicholas, and Carol had no idea he had become the successful businessman Nicholas Valence. Emma hung up the phone with tears in her eyes. Her boss, the cold and distant man who had hired her that morning, was her brother. The brother who had been a presence in her life since childhood, whose identity she never knew, was now standing right in front of her. Now she had a decision to make. Should she tell Nicholas who she really was? How would he react to finding out the little sister he didn't know he had been working for him all this time? As Emma walked home that night, she knew her life had changed forever. She held in her hands the power to reunite a family that had been separated for decades. But she also feared that the truth could destroy the new life she had just started. Fate had dealt her an extraordinary hand, placing her exactly where she needed to be. Now it was up to her to decide how to play it. Emma barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Nicholas's voice talking to his mother, the same voice that had been a constant in her childhood. She got up several times to look at the few photos she had from when she was little, searching for any clue she might have missed. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video. I'm a little curious and would love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. Thanks for watching this story. In a faded, yellowed picture taken at her birthday party, Emma could make out a young man in the background. Carol had never explained who he was, but now Emma could clearly see the features that had matured into Nicholas Valence's face. At 5 a.m., she gave in to insomnia and decided to get ready for work. She needed a plan. She couldn't just walk in and say, "Good morning, I'm your sister." The situation was too delicate, and the implications were too big. On the bus ride to the office, Emma remembered more details from her childhood. She recalled the anonymous gifts that would appear on Christmas and birthdays, always with a card that read, "From someone who loves you very much." She remembered how her mom sometimes cried after those nightly calls, not from sadness, but from a deep emotion Emma hadn't known how to interpret. She also remembered the day the calls abruptly stopped. Emma was 10 and Carol was very quiet for several days, looking at the phone as if waiting for it to ring. When Emma asked what was wrong, Carol simply said that sometimes life takes us on different paths. When she arrived at the office, Emma tried to act normal, but every time she saw Nicholas, her heart raced. She watched him with new eyes, noticing gestures that now seemed familiar, and expressions she had seen on her own mother's face. "Good morning, Ms. Miller," Nicholas greeted her as he passed her desk. "How are you feeling on your second day?" "Just fine, Mr. Valence, thanks for asking," Emma replied, struggling to keep her voice steady. Nicholas stopped for a moment, studying her face with a strange expression. "Are you okay? You look a little pale." Emma's heart skipped a beat. Was it possible that he also felt something familiar about her? "I'm perfectly fine, just a little tired. Didn't sleep very well last night." "The first day is always tough," Nicholas said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "If you need anything, don't hesitate to let me know." That morning, Emma had to review some of Nicholas's personal files to update his contact information. While organizing the documents, she found a birth certificate that confirmed her suspicions. Nicholas Valence had been born with the last name Miller, her mother's maiden name. Her hands trembled as she held the document. There it was, the definitive proof. Nicholas Valence Miller, born to Carol Miller, her older brother, the son her mother had to give up for adoption when she was a teenager. "Ms. Miller?" Emma started, hearing Patricia's voice behind her. She quickly put the certificate back in the folder. "Yes, what do you need?" "Mr. Valence wants to see you in his office. He says it's urgent." Emma felt the floor shift under her feet. Had Nicholas found out she'd been looking at his personal documents? Did he somehow know who she was? With trembling legs, she walked to Nicholas's office. He was standing by the window, in the exact same spot as the day before. "Close the door, please," he asked without turning to face her. Emma obeyed, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "Ms. Miller," Nicholas began, finally turning to look at her. His blue eyes studied her intensely. "There's something I need to ask you, and I need you to be completely honest with me." Emma swallowed, bracing for the worst. "Of course, Mr. Valence." "Your mother, is her name Carol Miller?" Emma's world stopped. The question was so direct, so unexpected. She didn't know how to respond. Nicholas watched her with an intensity that made her feel as if he could read her thoughts. Yes, she finally managed to whisper. Nicholas closed his eyes and leaned against the desk as if his legs could no longer hold him. "Did she work as a night nurse at St. Raphael's Clinic?" "Yes," Emma could barely speak. "Oh my God," Nicholas murmured, running a hand through his hair. "Emma, are you Carol's daughter?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "How did you know my name? You never mentioned it yesterday." "Because when your mother talked about you, she always said, 'my Emma.' She always talked about her daughter Emma, how proud she was of you, how you were the light of her life." Nicholas's voice broke. I'm Nicholas, the son she had to give up for adoption." Emma couldn't hold back anymore. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she nodded. "I know, I heard your call last night, and I recognized your voice. It was the same voice I listened to every night when I was a little girl." Nicholas approached her slowly, as if he feared she was a dream that might vanish. "You're really my sister?" "Yes," Emma whispered. "I'm your little sister." For a moment, they both stood motionless, processing the magnitude of what had just happened. Then, almost simultaneously, they moved toward each other and embraced. It wasn't the formal hug of a boss and his employee, but the desperate embrace of two siblings who had been searching for each other their whole lives without knowing it. "I can't believe it," Nicholas murmured against her hair. "You're here. My little sister is here." Emma cried openly. "Mom always told me I had an older brother who was watching over me from a distance. I never fully understood what it meant until now." They slowly pulled apart, studying each other's faces with a mix of awe and recognition. Now that they knew the truth, the similarities were undeniable. The same green eyes from Carol, the same nose shape, the same way of tilting their heads when they were deep in thought. "Please have a seat," Nicholas said, gesturing to the sofa in his office. "I have so many things to tell you. But first, how is Mom? Is she okay?" Emma smiled through her tears. "She's good. She recently retired from nursing. She lives in a small apartment near downtown. She always talks about you, about her oldest son, who became a successful man." "Does she know I work here?" "She had no idea. When I told her last night where I worked, she almost fainted. She didn't know that Nicholas Valence and her son Nicholas were the same person." Nicholas ran his hands over his face. "When the Valence family adopted me, I legally changed my last name. But I never stopped being Carol Miller's son. I never stopped loving her. Why did you stop calling her? Nicholas's expression darkened. Because I got married. My wife, my ex-wife, didn't understand my relationship with Carol. She said it was unhealthy for a grown man to still be so attached to his biological mother. She made me choose between her and the calls. His voice filled with bitterness. I chose wrong. I lost 10 years of my mother's life, and I'll never forgive myself for it. But now you call her every night, Emma observed. Yes, when I got divorced a few years ago, the first thing I did was look for Carol. Luckily, she still lived in the same house. When I saw her, she was sick. She was sick for years and never said anything because she didn't want to worry me. My arthritis, she had mentioned to Emma. That's why she retired from nursing. She was working double shifts just to pay for her medicine, but her body just couldn't do it anymore. Since then, I've been taking care of all her medical expenses, but she insists on living a modest life. Emma nodded. Mom is very proud. She never told me someone was helping her financially. I always thought she had saved very well during all her years of work. I asked her not to tell you. I didn't want you to think I was trying to buy her affection or something. I just wanted to make sure she was comfortable. Emma looked at him with admiration. You're exactly what she always said you were, a good man with a huge heart. I don't feel like a good man, Nicholas admitted. There's so much lost time, so many things I should have done differently. The past is the past, Emma said, taking his hand. The important thing is that now the three of us are here. Nicholas squeezed her hand. Do you think Carol will want to see me? Will she be mad at me for hiding who I was from you? Emma laughed through her tears. Nick, Mom loves you more than life itself. She's been waiting for this moment for decades. I'm so scared, he confessed. What if I'm not what she expected? What if I've changed too much for her? To her, you'll always be her boy, Emma assured him. That will never change. They spent the next few hours talking, filling in the gaps of their lives, sharing memories and dreams. Nicholas told her about his childhood with the Valence family, a rich but cold family that gave him opportunities but never the unconditional love he had received from Carol during his early years. Emma told him about her childhood with Carol, how her mom worked tirelessly but always had time for her, and how she would tell her stories about an older brother who protected her from afar. I always felt like something was missing, Emma admitted. Mom was wonderful, but there was a sadness in her that I never fully understood. Now I know it was the sadness of a mother separated from her son. And I always felt like I had a family somewhere, Nicholas said. The Valences were good to me, but I never felt like I fully belonged there. My heart was always with Carol, and apparently with you too. When they realized how late it was, the office was empty. They had been talking for hours, lost in the miracle of having found each other. Emma, Nicholas said suddenly, I want to ask you something. I know this is strange, given that I'm technically your boss, but would you want to come with me to see Mom tonight? I'm so scared to go alone. Emma smiled. Nothing would make me happier. They decided to go to Carol's apartment together. In Nicholas's car on the way, Emma called her mom to let her know she was coming over and that she was bringing someone special. Who, my daughter? Carol asked curiously. Emma looked at Nicholas, who was driving with hands trembling from nerves. It's a surprise, Mom, but I think you're going to like it very much. When they arrived at Carol's modest building, Nicholas stopped before getting out of the car. I can't do it, he said suddenly. What if she rejects me? What if she's mad at me for all those lost years? Emma put her hand on his arm. Brother, Mom has been waiting for you her whole life. This is what she's wanted most. Nicholas took a deep breath and nodded. Together they walked up the stairs to the second floor. Emma knocked on the door with their secret code. 3 short knocks and 2 long ones. Something she had done since she was a little girl. My girl is here, they heard Carol's joyful voice from inside. When the door opened, Carol appeared with a bright smile that immediately froze when she saw Nicholas standing next to Emma. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. Nicholas, she whispered, bringing her hands to her heart. My boy. Nicholas couldn't speak. He just nodded as tears streamed down his cheeks. Carol approached slowly as if she feared he was an apparition. She extended her trembling hands to touch her son's face. You're here, she murmured. My boy is here. Then the three of them embraced, a hug that repaired decades of separation. Carol cried openly, stroking Nicholas's hair as if he were the little boy she had to give up so long ago. "I'm sorry, Mom," Nicholas sobbed. "I'm sorry for all those lost years." "There's nothing to forgive, my love," Carol told him, kissing his forehead. "You're here now. My family is complete." Emma watched them with tears of happiness, knowing she had been fate's instrument to reunite her family. After so many years of feeling incomplete, she finally understood why. She wasn't just a daughter. She was a sister. And Nicholas wasn't just a successful man. He was her older brother who had been watching over their family from the shadows. That night, the three of them stayed up late, sharing stories, filling in the blanks of the lost years, and planning a future together. Carol made coffee and brought out old photo albums, showing Nicholas every stage of Emma's life he had missed. "Look, here's Emma at her graduation," Carol said, pointing to a photo. "She was the first in the family to finish college." Nicholas looked at each picture with a mix of pride and sadness. "I missed so much," he murmured. "But you're here now," Emma reminded him, "and we have a whole lifetime ahead of us to make up for lost time." When they finally said goodbye that night, they were no longer the same people they had been that morning. They were a family reunited by destiny and strengthened by a love that had never disappeared, even during the darkest years of separation. Nicholas hugged Carol for a long time before leaving. "I love you, Mom, and I'm never going to leave you again. And I love you, my boy. I always have. I always will." Emma knew her life had changed forever. She was no longer just an employee working for a distant boss. She was a sister who had found her family, a daughter who had been the bridge to reunite a mother with her lost son. Fate had played a perfect hand, and Emma had been the missing ace to complete the game. The days following the reunion were like living in a dream for all three of them. Emma came to the office every morning with a smile she couldn't hide, and Nicholas, while maintaining his professionalism in front of the other employees, had a light in his eyes that he had never had before. However, the work situation had become complicated. Emma could no longer be just Nicholas's assistant, not when they were siblings. Both of them knew they needed to find a solution that was ethical and fair for everyone. "I don't want people to think you're showing me favoritism," Emma said one morning while they were reviewing documents in his office. "That wouldn't be fair to my colleagues." Nicholas nodded. "I've been thinking the same thing. You're right, but I don't want to lose you from the team either. You're brilliant, Emma, and I'm not just saying that because you're my sister. Your work these past few days has been exceptional." Patricia, the human resources coordinator, had noticed the different chemistry between them. During lunch, she discreetly approached Emma. "Is everything okay between you and Mr. Valence?" she asked curiously. "You seem to have a special connection. He's been more human lately." Emma smiled. "Everything is great, Patricia. Better than I ever could have imagined." That afternoon, Nicholas made a decision. He called a meeting with Patricia and the head of operations, Frank Davis. "I've been thinking about making some organizational changes," Nicholas began. "I believe Emma Miller has the potential to take on greater responsibilities. I'd like to promote her to Special Projects Coordinator." Frank frowned. "Isn't that a little premature? She's only been working here for a week." "Sometimes you just know when someone has what it takes," Nicholas replied firmly. "Emma has shown an intuitive understanding of the business that I rarely see. Plus, her disposition would allow her to work more independently." Patricia considered the situation. "It's a significant promotion, Mr. Valence. Are you sure there are no conflicts of interest we should consider?" Nicholas and Emma exchanged a look. They had decided they would eventually have to reveal their relationship, but they wanted Emma to prove her professional value first. "Not for now," Nicholas said, "but I appreciate your concern for transparency." The promotion was announced at the end of the week, and while there was some murmuring among the employees, most of them recognized that Emma had shown exceptional competence in her short time on the job. Marie, the woman from accounting who had been kind to Emma since day one, was the first to congratulate her. "I knew you were special," she said with a smile. "Mr. Valence never promotes anyone this quickly. You must have made an extraordinary impression." "Something like that," Emma replied, smiling mysteriously. Meanwhile, outside the office, the relationship between the siblings and Carol blossomed in beautiful ways. Nicholas had begun to visit his mother not just at night, but on weekends too. Emma joined these visits, and slowly they were building the family traditions they had never been able to have. One Saturday morning, while they were having breakfast at Carol's small apartment, she made a confession that surprised them both. "I have something to show you," Carol said, getting up slowly from the table. She came back with an old box Emma had never seen before. Inside were dozens of handwritten letters in a youthful script. "What are these, Mom?" Emma asked. Carol smiled with tears in her eyes. "These are letters Nicholas wrote to me when he was little after the adoption. His adoptive parents let me visit him once a month for the first year, and he would always give me a letter to take home." Nicholas picked up one of the letters with trembling hands. "I don't remember writing you letters." "You were very small," Carol said softly, "but in each one you told me you loved me and that you were going to take care of me when you grew up." Emma picked up another letter and read it aloud. "Dear Mom, Carol, today I learned to write my full name. The new parents are good, but you will always be my mom at heart. When I grow up, I'm going to have lots of money so you never have to work so hard." The three of them cried as they read letter after letter, seeing how the little boy had promised things that he had unknowingly fulfilled as an adult. "I always knew you would find your way back to me," Carol said to Nicholas. "And I always knew Emma would be part of bringing you back." It was in moments like these that Emma realized how deeply intertwined their destinies had been all along. It hadn't been a coincidence that she got that exact job at that exact company. It had been the universe conspiring to reunite a family that love had kept connected despite distance and time. At work, Emma quickly excelled in her new role. Her ability to understand both client needs and the company's internal complexities made her a natural mediator. Nicholas watched her with pride, but also with the peace of mind of knowing that her promotion was based on genuine merit, not family favoritism. One day, while they were working on a particularly complex proposal, Frank Davis came over to Emma. "I have to admit something," he said. "At first, I thought Mr. Valence had lost his mind promoting you so quickly, but you've proved him right. Your work on the Miller project was brilliant." Emma smiled. "Thanks, Frank. That means a lot coming from you." "Is there something else?" Frank continued, lowering his voice. "I've noticed you and Mr. Valence have a special connection. It's not romantic," he was quick to clarify. "It's something different. It's like your family." Emma felt it was the right time. "Frank, could you keep a secret until we're ready to announce it officially?" Frank nodded, intrigued. "Nicholas is my brother, my older brother, who was given up for adoption before I was born. I didn't know it until after I started working here." Frank's mouth hung open. "Seriously? But how?" Emma told him the whole story from the nightly calls to the moment of recognition. Frank listened with growing fascination. "That's an incredible story," he said finally. "And what are you going to do now? Are you going to make this public eventually?" "Eventually," Emma replied, "but we want the company to get used to the idea that I'm competent on my own merit first." "Well, that's already more than proven," Frank assured her. A few days later, Nicholas made a decision that surprised Emma. During an all-staff meeting, he stood up to make a special announcement. "I want to share something personal with all of you," he began, looking at Emma with a smile. "As you know, I recently promoted Emma Miller to Special Projects Coordinator. Some of you have wondered about the speed of this decision." The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on Nicholas. "The truth is, Emma isn't just an exceptional employee. She's also my sister." A murmur of surprise swept through the room. Emma felt her cheeks flush as everyone stared at her. "I know this may seem confusing," Nicholas continued, "but Emma and I were separated when we were very young. I was given up for adoption, and we lost touch for decades. Neither of us knew the other would be working here. It was fate that reunited us." Patricia raised her hand. "Does this mean there was a conflict of interest in her hiring and promotion?" "No," Emma replied, standing up. "Nicholas didn't know who I was when he hired me. My resume went through the normal process, and my promotion was based on my performance during my first week. I understand your concerns and am willing to undergo any additional evaluation you deem necessary." Marie, the woman from accounting, began to applaud. "I think it's beautiful," she said. "I've seen Emma's work, and it's excellent. If it also turns out she's the boss's sister, well, that just makes the story more special. Gradually, other employees began to applaud too. Nicholas and Emma's honesty had touched something deep within all of them. "There's one more thing," Nicholas said, raising his hand to quiet the applause. "I want to invite you all to meet someone very special to Emma and me." Carol appeared at the entrance of the room, leaning slightly on a cane but with a radiant smile. Emma had arranged everything in secret with Nicholas. "This is Carol Miller," Nicholas announced in an emotional voice. "The bravest and most loving woman I know. She's our mother." Carol waved shyly, clearly nervous but happy. The employees greeted her with warm applause, and many came over to meet her personally. "It's an honor to meet our bosses and Emma's mother," Patricia said to Carol. "You must be very proud of your children." "Prouder than words can express," Carol replied, with tears of happiness in her eyes. In the following days, the family reunion story became the talk of the office, but in the best possible way. Employees were genuinely moved by the story, and many shared their own family experiences. Productivity in the office, far from decreasing, increased. There was a sense of camaraderie and purpose that hadn't existed before. Nicholas had become more approachable and more human, and that was reflected in the entire company culture. A month after the announcement, the company won its most important contract to date, the Miller Project, which Emma had helped design. During the celebration, Frank made a special toast. "This success wouldn't have been possible without Emma Miller's exceptional work," he said, raising his glass. "But more than that, it's the result of the positive change that the whole Miller family has brought to our company. We've learned that love and family are not weaknesses in the business world, but strengths." That night, the three of them had dinner together at Carol's apartment, as they had done every Friday since their reunion. Carol had improved remarkably since Nicholas came back into her life. Her arthritis was better controlled thanks to better medical treatments, but more importantly, her spirit was revitalized. "I have a confession to make," Carol said as she served dessert. "When Emma told me she was going to work at Valence Industries, I did a little research on the company. I saw a photo of the CEO in the newspaper, and my heart told me it was my Nicholas. But I just thought it was the wishful thinking of an old mother." Emma and Nicholas looked at her, surprised. "You knew from the beginning?" Emma asked. "I suspected," Carol admitted. "That's why I wasn't so surprised when you told me your boss's name was Nicholas. In my heart, I already knew the truth." "Why didn't you say anything?" Nicholas asked. Carol smiled knowingly. "Because some things need to unfold naturally. The universe had a plan, and I just had to trust in it." 6 months later, Emma was promoted again, this time to Director of Project Development. Her success was undeniable, and no one questioned her credentials anymore. She had proven that she was brilliant in her own right, not because she was the boss's sister. Nicholas, for his part, had found a balance between being a successful executive and a devoted son and brother. His nightly calls to Carol continued, but now Emma often participated in three-way phone conversations where they planned family dinners and vacations and simply shared the details of their days. Carol had moved into a bigger, more comfortable apartment closer to the office, which allowed her to visit her children more frequently. Nicholas had wanted to buy her a house, but Carol insisted the apartment was perfect for her needs. "I don't need a mansion," she had said. "I just need a home where my children feel welcome." One day, Emma was organizing the office's personal files when she found something that made her smile. It was the original job application she had filled out months ago. In the "Why do you want to work for our company" section, she had written, "I'm looking for an opportunity to grow professionally in an environment that values integrity and family relationships." Without knowing it, she had been predicting her future. "What's so funny?" Nicholas asked, coming into her office. Emma showed him the application. "Look at what I wrote when I applied for the job." Nicholas read it and burst out laughing. "It's like the universe was whispering to you what to write." "Or as if my heart already knew I was going to find my family here," Emma replied. Almost a year had passed since that first day when Emma had nervously ridden the elevator toward her new life. Now, as she looked at her older brother, she realized it had all been worth it. The job search, the first day nerves, even that first night of insomnia when she discovered the truth. "You know what excites me the most?" Emma said to Nicholas as they reviewed the plans for Carol's surprise birthday party. "What?" that we have a whole lifetime ahead of us to be siblings, to create new memories and make up for lost time. Nicholas smiled, and Emma could see in his eyes the same serene happiness she had found in her own. And the best part, Nicholas added, is that Mom no longer has to choose between her children. She has both of us together, right where we always wanted to be. Emma's story had begun with a job search, but it had become something much bigger. The story of a family that love had kept together through time and distance. A family that had been reunited by the most beautiful of accidents and had discovered that home isn't a place but the people we love. Carol had been right. The universe had a plan, and that plan had been perfect. When Emma arrived at the office now, it wasn't just to work. It was to continue living the most beautiful story of her life. The story of a family reunited by destiny and strengthened by unconditional love. And every night when Nicholas made his daily call to Carol, Emma often joined the conversation from her own phone. The three voices would mix with laughter, plans, and words of love, finally completing the circle that had begun so many years ago. The new employee was no longer new, but the family she had found was for a lifetime. Epilogue. 5 years later, the spring sun streamed through the windows of the elegant restaurant as Emma adjusted the bouquet of white flowers in her hands. Her wedding dress was simple but beautiful, exactly what she had dreamed of since she was a little girl. But what excited her most wasn't the dress or the flowers, but the two people waiting for her at the end of the aisle. Nicholas, impeccable in his dark suit, waited with a smile that radiated brotherly pride. Beside him, Carol, radiant in a light blue dress, held a handkerchief in her hands, but her eyes sparkled with pure happiness. "Ready, sis?" Nicholas asked, offering his arm. Emma nodded, feeling tears of joy threaten to ruin her makeup. More than ready. As they walked toward the altar where Daniel was waiting, the kind architect who had won her heart during a work meeting 2 years ago, Emma reflected on the incredible journey her life had been. Valence Industries had grown exponentially under Nicholas's renewed leadership. His management style, transformed by his reunion with his family, had created a work environment that served as a model for other companies. Emma, now Vice President of Strategic Development, had been key to that transformation. But professional successes paled in comparison to the personal riches she had gained. Sunday dinners at Carol's house had become a sacred tradition. The annual family trips had filled entire albums with precious memories, and the nightly phone conversations between the three of them had evolved into a ritual of love that kept the family united day after day. Carol had blossomed in extraordinary ways. Her arthritis, under constant medical control, no longer limited her life. She had started taking painting classes, a youthful dream she had never been able to pursue, and her watercolors now decorated both Emma's and Nicholas's offices. "My grandkids are going to have the most talented grandma in the world," Nicholas had said one day. "Grandkids?" Carol had asked with sparkling eyes. "Is there something you haven't told me?" Emma had blushed. "Not yet, Mom, but someday." Now, as she approached the altar where Daniel waited for her with unconditional love reflected in his eyes, Emma knew that someday was getting closer and closer. The officiant began the ceremony, but Emma could barely focus on the traditional words. Her attention was divided between Daniel, who looked at her as if she were the most precious treasure in the world, and her family, who had made it possible for her to arrive at this moment as a complete and happy woman. "Emma Miller, do you take Daniel to be your husband?" the officiant asked. "I do," she replied, her voice clear and firm. When Daniel kissed her as his wife, applause filled the room. But above all, Emma heard Carol's joyful cry and saw Nicholas wiping away a tear that had escaped. During the reception, Nicholas stood up to make a toast that brought tears to everyone's eyes. "5 years ago," he began, "a young woman named Emma walked into my office looking for a job. What neither of us knew was that she hadn't just come to find employment, she had come to save a family." The guests listened in absolute silence as Nicholas told their story, a story many already knew, but that never lost its power to move people. Emma taught us that true love transcends time and distance, that families can be physically separated, but never in the heart, and that sometimes the best things in life come disguised as coincidences. He raised his glass to Emma and Daniel, to Emma, who gave us back our family, to Daniel, who won the heart of the most extraordinary woman I know, and to Carol, the mother who never stopped believing in miracles. The celebration continued late into the night, full of laughter, dancing, and perfect moments. Carol, who had insisted on learning to salsa for the occasion, was the sensation of the dance floor. Nicholas, usually reserved, relaxed completely and spent the night telling embarrassing anecdotes about Emma that he had discovered during their 5 years of rediscovered siblinghood. "Now I understand why you were so meticulous with the files in the office," Nicholas told Emma as they danced. "Mom told me you used to organize your toys by color and size when you were little." Emma laughed. "And now I understand why you're so protective of the employees. Mom told me you always defended the younger kids at the orphanage." "I guess some traits never change," Nicholas replied, "no matter how much time passes." As the night ended, Emma and Daniel prepared to leave for their honeymoon in Europe. But before getting into the car waiting for them, Emma hugged Carol and Nicholas one last time. "Thank you," she whispered, "for waiting for me all these years without knowing you were waiting." "Thank you," Carol replied, kissing her forehead, "for being the bridge that brought us back together." "Take care of my sister," Nicholas told Daniel, shaking his hand. "She's the most precious thing I have." "The most precious thing we have," Carol corrected, taking both men's hands. As the car drove away, Emma looked out the back window and saw her mother and brother standing together, waving goodbye. The image filled her heart with a deep, lasting peace. "What are you thinking about?" Daniel asked, taking her hand. "How strange life is," Emma replied. "I thought I went looking for a job, and I ended up finding everything I didn't know I had lost." "And I thought I went to a business meeting when I met you," Daniel said, smiling, "and I ended up finding the love of my life." Emma snuggled against her new husband, feeling the profound satisfaction of a life lived to its fullest. She had a successful career, a marriage that promised to be extraordinary, and a family that had been forged not only by blood, but by unconditional love and forgiveness. In her purse, she carried a letter Carol had given her that morning. "Open it on your honeymoon," her mom had said, with mysterious eyes. As the plane took off for Paris, Emma carefully opened the envelope. Inside was an old photograph she had never seen. A very young Carol was holding a baby, while a little boy hugged them both. On the back, in Carol's careful handwriting, was written, "The first and last photo of my 3 treasures together. Emma, 6 months. Nicholas, 3 years. Me, I'm eternally grateful. Now that you are together again, my life is complete." Emma showed the photo to Daniel, tears streaming freely down her cheeks. "It's beautiful," Daniel murmured. "Look how little you were." "Look how much love was there," Emma replied, "even when we were about to be separated." She carefully put the photo back in her wallet, right next to a more recent one from her wedding, where the 3 of them, Emma, Nicholas, and Carol, were smiling as if they had been together their whole lives. When they returned from their honeymoon, Emma and Daniel moved into a house just a few blocks from Carol. Nicholas, who had also renovated his own house, had chosen to live near his mother. On Sundays, the 5 of them would gather for lunch, a tradition that promised to continue for generations. The first Sunday after the wedding, as they shared a meal Carol had prepared from recipes she had been perfecting for decades, Nicholas made an announcement that surprised everyone. "I've decided something," he said, standing up. "I'm going to change the name of the company." Emma and Carol looked at him with curiosity. "From now on, it will be called Miller Valence Family Corporation," he continued with a smile. "Because this company isn't just mine, it's ours. It's the result of this family's love and sacrifice." Carol began to cry, and Emma couldn't help but join her. "But Nicholas," Emma protested, "people are going to think it's nepotism." "Let them think what they want," Nicholas replied firmly. "We know the truth. We know this family builds everything with integrity, hard work, and love. If that's not enough for the world, then the world doesn't deserve us." 2 years later, when Emma gave birth to a beautiful baby girl who inherited the Miller family's green eyes, the first person to hold her after her parents was Carol. "Hello, little Isabella," Carol whispered to the baby. "I'm your grandma, Carol, and that handsome man over there is your Uncle Nicholas. We have so many stories to tell you." Nicholas, looking at his niece with infinite tenderness, made a silent decision. This child would grow up knowing every day how much she was loved, knowing every detail of her family's story, and knowing that she belonged to something bigger and more beautiful than herself. "She's going to have the childhood we couldn't have," he said to Emma as he held Isabella. She's going to have the childhood we didn't have, Emma corrected, but she's also going to have the love that was always there, just waiting for us to be wise enough to find it. And so in a perfect circle of love, the story that had begun with a painful separation was transformed into a joyous reunion that would bless future generations. Isabella Miller Davis would grow up hearing the story of how her mother had gone looking for a job and found a family, how her uncle had called her grandma every night for decades without knowing his little sister existed, and how true love had patiently woven the loose threads of their lives until it created something beautiful and lasting. Some stories end with happily ever after. This story ends with something even better. They live together forever, knowing that family love is the greatest gift we can give and receive. And every night when Carol could no longer walk to the phone, Emma and Nicholas took turns calling her. But now the conversations included baby coos, Daniel's laughter, and plans for a future that spanned not just days and weeks, but a whole lifetime of shared love. The circle was complete. The family was home. I hope you enjoyed the story. I have some news today. If you like my narrations, I'm sure you'll also love my new prayer channel, Prayers with Alex. Come with me to praise God with faith-filled prayers every morning and every night. The link is up here in the card and also in the pinned comment. I'll be waiting for you there with all my heart. I'd also love to know what you thought of this story. Tell me in the comments. And now another exciting video is appearing on your screen that will surely surprise you. Tap it to keep getting moved by stories that touch the soul. See you there. Remember to subscribe to Crossroads of Fate.